Casmium believes every young athlete deserves a shot at greatness. By making data analytics accessible and easy, they provide a new way for coaches and athletes to improve their game. Casmium's digital scoring app, all-in-one stats, and chart software enable teams to quickly and easily find new ways to strategize and harness the power of data. Join Casmium in revolutionizing the world of youth sports with tools that make a difference. Schedule a software demo or sign up today at Casmium.com. Casmium, where sports technology sparks victory.
If you want a better quality snack for game day or any day, check out what they offer at iowasmokehouse.com. Iowa Smokehouse offers a full lineup sure to satisfy you and your family's snacking needs. Whether it's with thick and tender cuts of beef jerky, flavorful meat sticks, or delicious steak bites, or even ketchup and barbecue sauces, you will never need to look elsewhere. Tasting is believing. Visit iowasmokehouse.com and use code Hawkeyes for 15% off your next order. That's iowasmokehouse.com and use code Hawkeyes for 15% off your next order. Iowa Postgame with Coach John Patterson is proudly presented by Brad Van Meter at State Farm in Des Moines. Call Brad for a free quote on auto, life, renters, or even homeowners insurance at 515-256-6480 or visit www.bradvanmeter.com. Again, that's Brad Van Meter at State Farm in Des Moines. We appreciate Brad and his continued support of From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Well, everybody. It is the start to a new Iowa football season. Very exciting day today, getting back out on the field with many games after last week's Week 0 intro to the season. A year ago, Iowa had 284 yards of total offense and was outgained in a win against Utah State 24-14. And I think we all left that game worried even before any of the injury bug hit the Hawkeye offense. And the year before that, we didn't even accumulate 170 total yards of offense in that 7-3 shocker against South Dakota State. And even the year before that, if anybody remembers, the 34-6 win against Indiana, Iowa only accumulated 303 yards of total offense. So I was ready to come on here after the first half today and tell everybody a lot of the same things that we saw last year and the year before and the year before that. I think everybody else was too. There's a lot of frustration in the stadium, frustration in the air at Kinnick. But man, did they flip the script with that second half performance. A lot of just very interesting positives and negatives, lots of stuff to talk about. So looking forward to getting to it today. Corey is not here today. For anybody that has noticed, I am not Corey Browda, of course. Corey is attending to a personal matter and will be back tomorrow night with Coach John Patterson, who is also going to join me today. But Corey will be back tomorrow night for a follow-up post-game show to discuss. Of course, we are here talking about Iowa and their 40-0 victory against Illinois State this afternoon. RTI Threads player of the game today, freshman wide receiver Reese Vanderzee. 5 receptions, 66 yards, and 2 touchdowns added a spark to the Hawkeyes offense in his debut at Kinnick. Just a very, very solid debut. For anybody that was listening to Corey's reporting during the duration of fall camp, everybody was very, very impressed with this young man the entire way through camp. Obviously, he was the only true freshman to show up on the 2-deep depth chart for week 1 here. And he backed it up with his performance today, a couple of great catches in the end zone, and really just gave Iowa a sort of flair at wide receiver with his size and speed that we have not had in a long, long time. So, and that performance, by the way, as well with the wide receivers, I'm sure everybody saw 3 wide receiving touchdowns. They displayed this on the broadcast a couple of times. 3 wide receiver touchdowns matches the total from last year and actually beats the total from 2022. 3 wide receiver touchdowns in the second half today, 3 wide receiver touchdowns last year, and 2 wide receiver touchdowns in 2022. I am pleased to be joined by the one, the only, some of us know him as the offensive coordinator for Hayden Fry. Others like me know him as an avid golfer, Coach John Patterson.
I don't know about the avid golfer part.
How are we doing today, Coach?
I'm out there, but my game is not on your level.
Well, sometimes I wish it was on the level that some other people think it's at. But you were at the game today, I assume. Yes. What were your first thoughts on the game? Obviously, 2 very different halves of football, and a lot of interesting takeaways, I thought, from Tim Luster's debut.
Yeah, I was disappointed as you were in the first half, Kyle. It was a struggle to get anything going, especially in the first quarter. I think we had 34 yards offense in quarter number 1, but by halftime we were in the 150s or so. I think we picked up a little more than 100 yards in the second quarter. I think what happened, we simply wore them down on a warm day. We proved beyond any shadow of a doubt that our backups are better than theirs. We played a lot of backups, some of which do not think of themselves as backups. That's for sure. Some of the running backs in particular, of course, they're pretty much interchangeable. They're all very serviceable. Looking at the numbers, Kamari's numbers are not nearly as good. But let's not forget that Kamari's carries were in the first half when Illinois State was a lot fresher and able to put up a better fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very impressed with their effort in the first half. I know part of that was bad Iowa in the first half, but I have to say credit to Illinois State while they were still fresh. I thought offensively and defensively for an FCS opponent playing on the road in a Big Ten stadium, I was impressed with them.
Yeah, they represented themselves very well. And we just warmed down. It's a lot warmer down the field than what people realize. I have to admit, even sitting in my seat, I was more than warm enough. I was uncomfortably warm a little bit in the second half. But anyway, I think good things that came out of the game. I think Kate McNamara regained some confidence with how he can play. Started off very shaky, but then got better as the game went on. A good thing to see, of course. We had receivers that we, up until today, didn't know much about, and in general, they came through. You mentioned Vanderzee's numbers: 7 targets, 5 catches. I don't remember the 2 incompletes. Probably just inaccurate throws. I don't recall that he dropped one. Jacob Gill, 3 targets, 3 catches for 46 yards. And I couldn't help but remember a couple of those were difficult catches. And then we go to the tight ends. Luke Lachey, 8 targets, 6 catches, 63 yards. But here's what I like to see: yards after contact. Lachey with 30 yards out of the 63 yards. Good job.
Not showing signs of being unsure of himself after a nasty injury last year.
Right. And Ortworth had 2 catches for 31, 6 yards. Ostrega had 3 catches for 25, 17 yards. So they all did a good job of getting the pass down, trying to fight for the extra yardage. In some cases, breaking tackles to be able to produce extra yardage.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on that heat too, interestingly, Coach, I remember talking about this a couple of years ago as well when we had the 2021, I think it was, Iowa State game where it was like 105 degrees on the field and it was 90 degrees like in the air. Is there a general rule for how much hotter, especially the kind of fishbowl stadiums are relative to like the actual temperature outside? Is it generally 5 or 10 degrees warmer at the bottom of those fishbowls?
I would think for sure down near the turf you can add at least 10 degrees.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how Kenny registers in that regard, but I'll just assure you, as a veteran of being on many sidelines, it's a lot warmer down there than it is even in your seat.
Yeah.
Good thing to see. I saw a lot of good push with our defensive line. Really satisfied to see some sacks. Got pretty good pressure up front. It was kind of obvious to me early in the game. They in particular went after T.J. Hall. A lot of their early balls thrown out wide were thrown underneath T.J. Did a good job of defending. They really didn't make many yards off of him. Not that he couldn't have defended better sometimes, but if the ball was accurately thrown, he had pretty good coverage. Maybe broke it up. Maybe it fell incomplete, or maybe he had to tackle a guy. But in general, we prevented them from making a lot of big plays. Let me see what they had in terms of longest pass play, 37 yards. And then beyond that, we got to drop down into the teens.
Yeah.
So longest run, 9 yards. So here we are again with great defense to prevent explosive plays. Something, as you know, we do very, very well. Far and away the best in the Big Ten last year. I haven't talked about the numbers because I just ran them here recently. In our 10 games last fall, we gave up a total of 13 plays that were 20 yards or more. Give you an idea of how good that is. Number 2 on the list was Michigan with 22 plays in their 10 games. So we're at 1.3, they're at 2.2, and they're in second place. Yeah. So it gives you an idea of how good we were. Pretty amazing. As near as I can tell, almost certainly this is the case. We give up 1 play beyond 20 yards. And I don't remember the play even, but Lloyd had a pass play for 37. Can you refresh my memory? Can't remember.
Yeah, it was kind of the jump ball thrown down the right sideline. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I remember.
Over John Nestor.
They were driving to the south, yeah. Beat Nestor on the play. You're right.
Yeah.
And as you know, Nestor and TJ are in competition for that second quarterback spot. And I think what I heard from the coaches is, well, right now TJ gets the edge. If you want to base it on anything at all, you base it on consistency. Did a better job of not allowing big plays. So Nestor gave up the one chunk play. I don't doubt that overall he played okay. But he'll be reminded, of course, that's not who we are. We don't give up 37-yard pass completions.
Yeah.
And I'm sure because it happened today, it's less likely to happen for John next week against Iowa State.
Yeah. In general, I mean, the one takeaway I had, at least from the first half, that was a positive was I thought, I listened to the preseason preview show with you and Corey, and one of the things you pointed out that was obviously something that was kind of I thought it was an under the radar concern last year was the number of turnovers that we forced went way down relative to 2021, 2020, those type of teams. And I just thought, obviously the Iowa defense is known for being gap sound, eyes on the quarterback at all times, but I saw an aggressiveness in pursuit of the ball today in terms of trying to create those turnovers that I think was kind of lacking last year. I think there was a lot of kind of sitting back and waiting for ball carriers to get to us for in terms of tackling and stuff like that. More of a focus on stopping yardage than forcing turnovers. It looked like that was something that was emphasized in camp.
Yeah, looking at the final stats, we finished today +3. We gained 3 on defense and didn't turn it over once. So that's what you're looking for. Don't beat yourself. To give you an idea about last year, in our 10 conference games, we gained a total of 12 turnovers. At the same time, we turned the ball over 16 times. Too high on offense, not good enough on defense. -4. Bear with me, Carl. I'm a little stymied with the weather. I'll fight through it. Give me an idea of what some teams did do last fall. This is about as good a numbers as I've ever seen. The Big Ten or elsewhere. Michigan in their 10 games last year forced 20 turnovers. And would you like to guess how many times they turned it over on offense?
Probably 3 or 4.
2.
2. Oh my gosh.
20 versus 2.
Once every 6 or what? Once every 5 or 6 games, right?
Once every 5 games, they turned it over on offense. Just
crazy.
That's impressive. +18 on 10 games. And here's another one that's equally impressive. Penn State. Penn State actually gained 21 turnovers in 9 games, and they turned it over a grand total of 4 times, +17 on 9 games. So statistically, +17 in 9 games is ever so slightly better than +18 in 10. So in terms of final stats, Penn State was first, Michigan was second, but both of them were off the charts good. And that's what we have to aspire to do, because that's how you play winning football.
Absolutely. I know the other candidate for RTI Threads Player of the Game today would have been probably Caleb Johnson. Any disagreement on RTI Threads Player of the Game? Anyone else you'd like to throw in that mix?
Not really. I guess you could consider our young receiver. It's pretty obvious now, if we have 2 receivers on the field, based on the available players today, the favorites were 5 and 15, right?
Yeah.
Were Gill and our freshman receiver.
Yeah.
And both those guys gave a good account of themselves. So I don't think they're going to lose their jobs. As you know, Brown comes back next week. And I would imagine if we're out there with 3 wide receivers, I'm assuming right now that Brown would be the 3rd receiver. Don't know that. We don't really know how he's compared during camp. He wasn't available today, so it's kind of hard to know exactly where he sits at this point in time. But the good news, I'd say overall, you got to give them a passing grade on how they played today. I know that a critic would say, well, that was poor pass defense at times. Can't really argue that. But still, our guys still had to fight for the ball, still had to look the ball in, still had to protect the ball, still had to make some difficult catches. While I'm thinking of it, if I'm not mistaken, Kyle, 2 of Gill's 3 catches were difficult catches made in traffic. Nice catches, above average catches. They were not routine plays. So I was impressed with Gill today. And of course, I was impressed with our freshman, number 15. I got to get that pronunciation down. Is it
Reese Van Der Zee?
Van Der Zee.
Van Der Zee. Yeah, and I think between those two today, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more about Jacob Gill. I thought, sometimes you hear this stuff out of camp, and it's like this guy or that guy is really impressing us. And two of the guys we heard that about were Van Der Zee and Gill, and both of them absolutely validated that today, not just with the stats and the plays that they made, but how they looked. I mean, Jacob Gill looked like a Big Ten wide receiver. Reese Van Der Zee looked like a Big Ten wide receiver, catches in traffic, absorbing hits. Jacob Gill took a couple huge hits in the third quarter.
Yeah.
On the slant route for the first down. He just gets absolutely crushed by the linebacker, holds onto the ball and bounces right back up. That's a Big Ten play.
Yep. Very true.
I was absolutely impressed with those. And to throw another name, I saw another name in the chat there that I probably should mention. Aaron Graves for player of the game as well. He would have had a shout in there as well. 3 tackles for loss today. All 3 of them were sacks. 3 sacks in a game obviously is quite a feat. Not to mention the fumble recovery that he had in the first half as well.
That's all true. An impressive game on his part.
Yeah,
3 sacks for -9, 4 total tackles, but 3 of them, of course, were the best of all. Tackles for minus yardage on passing downs, of course. We did a good job. Here's another plus for our defense. Did a good job in general of getting off the field. Remember the past, one of our problems is defending well on third down. Thought we did a pretty good job of getting on and off the field. As a result of that, the defense didn't have as many snaps. Let me see what the team snaps are here.
I can tell you from the ESPN stat sheet, Illinois State was 4 of 15 on third down and 0 of 2 on fourth down, so 4 of 17 on critical downs.
Yeah, that's pretty good. 62 snaps for them versus our 71. So you'd like to think if you're doing a good job of getting off the field, you might not have to defend more than 60 snaps in a game. Yeah. That's a little bit how it worked out today. Here's another plus. I was impressed with 21 on punt returns.
Oh,
absolutely. It's going to be a good one.
He is a
little bit of Tim Dwight. He's not as good as Tim right now, but I'd like for him to aspire to be more like Tim Dwight. He's already a little bit like Tim Dwight. So that was good to see. I will admit, at times, he had a line drive punt that was an easy ball to take advantage of. But still, he runs hard. He's explosive. He can break tackles. He's very sure with his hands. That's where it all starts, of course, just being able to field the ball each and every time. So I like him on returns. Yeah,
absolutely. And that was one of the holes that were to be filled after the departure of one Cooper DeJean. We're going to take a quick break here. We've got a couple of little ads to play for Corey, and then we're going to be right back. But when we get back, the call-in line, the Iowa Smokehouse call-in line is in the description. And I threw it in the chat there just a moment ago for those of us on the Voice of College Football channel. But the call-in line is in the description. Coach Patterson and I will be here for probably about another hour or just over an hour, taking your calls, taking your chats, and discussing Iowa's Week 1 victory, 40-0 over Illinois State. We'll be right back.
Ever ask yourself, how would my life be different if I had made different choices? Would I be happier? More wealthy? Here's a humorous novel that explores that question, venturing back to that magical time in the early 90s when grunge was taking over big hairbands. It was just when our hero, Amy Gare, began to face the real world. You Hawkeye fans just might enjoy the setting as well. Goodbye Def Leppard, I'll Miss Those Jeans by Steph Kramer can be found on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and it's free for Kindle Unlimited subscribers.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Ryan Glick, co-founder and CEO of Groove. And if you're a real estate professional, I have something I think you're going to be interested in. We've developed a platform that's transforming the way deals are prospected and managed in the real estate world. With Groove, you can organize real estate data in one place and share real estate deals with just one click. Join other real estate pros and reclaim up to 90% of your time. Head over to letsgroove.com/signup and start your free trial today.
All right. Well, Coach, what do you say? Are we ready to take a few calls from the people?
Absolutely.
All right. Bringing in OS for Hawks. First caller of the season, Mr. OS for Hawks. How are we doing?
I'm good. You hear me okay?
I sure can. What were your
All
thoughts
right.
on the game today?
It's good. And hello, Coach. I know I've talked to you a couple times in the past. I don't think I've talked to you before, Kyle. Just a couple thoughts. My first thought was wide receiver Reese Vanderzee. He's from West Lyon. That's way up in the northwest corner, and I'm familiar with that. I actually am from that region originally, and I played football up in northwest Iowa. And I just wanted to throw a couple old names. Monty Potabon was from West Lyon. And then an old school name, Tom Roach, played football at West Lyon. And Tom Roach was a fullback at Iowa State. He was a great player. And when I played football, I never got hit as hard as when I tried to tackle Tom Roach. That's the only reason why I bring him up. He was an unbelievable player. Great fullback, and when you went to tackle him, he tried to hit you harder than you were trying to hit him. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Great. I also thought Graves played great today. We mentioned that. I think the second half, taking the ball in the second half, had the initial scoring drive in the second half was big for the game, and I think there were signs that Cade was feeling more comfortable late in the first half and he had towards the end of the first half, and then that first drive in the second half kind of really showed that. I also thought that Caleb Johnson played great in the second half, 2 touchdowns. And I wanted to say another thing. I think the slow start by Cade was not unexpected. I mean, let's face it. When was the last time he was on the field? A little over a year, a little less than a year ago. So he hasn't been out there in a long time.
Right.
My only slight concern, and I always talk about this because I'm a former offensive lineman. I played center. And I think our O-line, the pass protection was good today. But the only, if I want to call it a negative, is our ability to run the ball. It improved in the second half, but like Coach said, I think that we were starting to wear them out, with talent. And that's about all I've got to say.
Yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
in terms of the fatigue and the heat, that was the biggest difference. Where I saw that was Illinois State's defensive line. They did not have the 6 or 7 bodies that we always talk about needing to rotate in and out of the game, and Iowa's offensive linemen held up reasonably well in the heat.
I have one last thing. You go ahead and finish but I just thought of something. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, that was the one area in terms of fatigue that stood out the most.
I had one question I wanted to ask Coach, was the Higgins holding call on that pass play.
Yeah, I didn't even know who the call was on.
Yeah, it was on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was on Higgins for holding. And when
what did
they
the
showed
replay show? Did he grab a receiver?
I thought it was.
No, the receiver grabbed Higgins.
yeah. There was a lot of. It was more of a 2-man hand fighting than it was a 1-man grabbing 1 man.
I'll just say this about the officials: it's not hard to imagine that the Big Ten would not necessarily send their best officiating crew to this game today. Let's face it, they're more likely to. I'm trying to think of what is the toughest matchup today in the Big Ten?
Probably
Penn State. Who would it be?
Yeah, Penn State, Western Virginia.
Penn State's on the road though, right?
Yeah, they are. That's right. Yeah, I don't know. Was there anybody?
I know
today?
Nebraska's at home versus UTEP.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd send a better crew because at least that's FBS versus FBS.
Yeah.
So it's not hard to imagine that this crew we had today was not among their highest rated crews. Not to make excuses for them, because there really is no excuse for a bad call. That's the mindset they do have too. They like to finish the game of being able to say that they got them all correctly called. It's hard to do, but it's what they aspire to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I have nothing else other than beat Cyclones next week. You guys have a great
Absolutely.
That's good,
weekend.
OS.
Thank you.
It's like as they say on Twitter, Cyclone Hate Week has begun. Thanks, OS for Hawks. We do have the one, the only Tom Kakert in the queue. How are we doing? It's probably an unusual press conference for yourself with a new face at the podium.
It was different. I've known Seth for a long time, going back to when he came back from Valdosta State to be the recruiting coordinator. So I was obviously, in touch with him frequently about recruiting and such. And then just, obviously develop a good working kind of relationship with him and just knowing him personally. And today meant a lot to him, as you might expect. And I went up to him after. Coach Patterson will enjoy this because I went up to him afterwards, and he had talked about his dad being a coach, and his dad was coach at Poe and Grinnell and everything, and what that was like to have that relationship with him. And I went up to him after the press conference got done, and I looked at him and I said, Norm Parker would have left today for you, because that was his mentor, really, was Norm. Sure. And he came to Iowa as a GA and worked under Norm. And there were a couple of times in his talk today after the game where he dropped some Normisms and on there about, Reese Vanderzee being on a little yellow bus. And, he dropped a Normism about that both teams have good players, and and players win games, not coaches. And those are all Normisms, and made me think back to Norm and just what he meant to this program, because he was one of the foundation builders for Iowa football, was Norm Parker. So
if I could talk to Seth after the game, I would have said, congratulations, Seth. You only get one chance to win your first game.
Yes.
At least hopefully you only get one chance. Hopefully you don't need more than one. So he's 1-0.
He's 1-0. And and it was a weird game. As I'm writing the lead to my story, it was like a tale of two halves. It was one half that looked a lot like last year, and a second half that looked a lot like what Iowa fans hope this year looks like.
You can really see Cade gaining confidence, not just with how he can play, but how the offense can move the ball.
Absolutely. Yeah. You saw just, and I think, and the previous caller mentioned it, you saw it a little bit in those last couple of drives of the first half from Cade, where you saw them moving the ball and putting some, stacking some first downs and moving the ball down the field a little bit more. And
being decisive when deciding to run the ball too.
Yeah. And then in the second half, it's just like something clicked, and it just looked like a different team. The pass game got going. The run game got going. Caleb Johnson, he had to sit for the first half, but he looked terrific in the second half. So he gave them a whole jolt of energy. I think maybe he had some pent-up energy himself, and he felt like he had something to show.
Do me a favor and explain that. I wasn't aware he had to sit for some kind of conduct reason for a half.
Yeah, it was disciplinary reasons, and it was not from the coaches. It was from the leadership council on the Iowa football team that decided that he would sit for the half. So that's what he did, and then he came out and played like gangbusters. And Iowa finally started to show what they could do up front. They finally started to maybe solve that blitz. They were run blitzing all the time, and they finally showed that they could beat it. And once they beat it, it was the floodgates opened up. And
we certainly had some good running lanes in the second half.
Yeah,
it was easy for our backs to get downhill.
Yeah, and when he can get to that edge too, like he did on the one run, it's all over. If he turns that corner and he's got a little bit of speed, a little bit of edge on you, it's over. You're just looking at the back of his jersey at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And he had
that's
a lot of
one of my
Yeah.
concerns, Tom, over last season in 10 conference games. As I recall, I don't have the stuff in front of me, but as I recall, we had a total of 20 explosive plays, only
Yes.
2 per game. Some teams have 4.5 or 5 per game.
Yes.
So we were not very good at all in generating big plays. One guy that historically has given us a chance for big plays, of course, is our long striding running back, number 2. Caleb can do that.
Yes, and here's the kind of the dovetail on that was Seth talked about this after the game, and Bill talked about it kind of leading up to the game, is that they were really disappointed in the number of turnovers that they created, the number of explosive plays, if you will, on defense that they created. They only had 10 interceptions last year as a team and
Yeah.
didn't have a lot of fumbles for us. That was a special emphasis, and you saw that today where they were able to create some turnovers, create some short fields, almost created even more. The Higgins play, I asked Jay about that after the game, by the way. Asked him about the phantom hold, and he goes, may have had a little bit of them, but I asked him if the other guy had a good piece of him too, and he just kind of smiled. So
Yeah.
he took the high road.
You're right about turnovers. Last year, we forced in 10 games, only forced 12. That's not very good, especially for us. Normally, we win on turnover margin. Last year, we lost. We won games in spite of that, but you're really going with a very small margin of error if you lose on turnovers.
Yep. And if you could, normally they're up in the 20s to 30 in terms of turnovers
Yeah, we're
created.
at least among the best teams in the conference. This past year, we were not.
And we saw that in this game where they're creating some turnovers and creating some big plays and getting some sacks. Remember last year we were talking after 4 games, they had like 2 sacks, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot. And then they caught fire and it was bringing Phil had to do something that he doesn't do a lot of, which is kind of bring different alternate pressures. But I liked the way he was running things today on third downs when you move Deontay Craig and Brian Allen into the D tackle positions, and then you've got Max Llewellyn and Herkett on the edge. I thought that gave them some interesting looks. I thought Brian Allen played well. Obviously, Graves played terrific today. I mean, that's the Aaron Graves that you want to see. And Y.A. Black, both those tackles played just lights out football.
Here is a negative. In the end of the day, we were penalized 7 times for 50 yards, I believe it was. That's unusual. We actually lost on penalties, lost on penalty yardage. So,
and how many of those penalties were on crucial plays? I mean, they had the punt return that was taken back by Caden Weegan on the completely unnecessary block in the back, and then
I certainly believe that was a good call.
Aaron Graves had a fumble recovery on the Jay Higgins hold, and then Kamari Moulton had a first down, and so did Cade on 2 other runs that were called back by holding.
You know who doesn't mind that in a 40-0 win, that there's some things that they have teachable moments? Coaches, because then you can go after people and you could say, look, yeah, you guys won 40-0, but you know what? We got a lot of things to clean up because that's not going to be 40-0 next week if you play like that and play that undisciplined against Iowa State.
Yeah. One thing you can count on, if it's equally warm next Saturday, we're not going to be able to wear Iowa State down the way we did Illinois State.
No,
their depth is better, and we need to be better from start to finish.
Yeah. The other good thing, Iowa really kind of came out of this game clean, health-wise. Just doesn't seem like there's anything that
I did notice Widget was limping a little bit in the second half.
He was cramped up.
Just cramps, okay.
Yeah, and Cade, there was a moment there in the second half where he cramped up too. I thought maybe he had maybe hit a helmet or something on that.
Well, he had an issue in his right arm.
Yeah, and that was.
I thought maybe he got a helmet on his arm.
Yeah,
his hand,
that's what I asked. I asked him, and he said no, it was just cramping. He was cramping up. His hand. His hand was cramping up.
Yeah.
So he's okay. So it was just mainly he and Kinwich both had a little cramping issue. But other than that, they were healthy. Logan Jones went out for a brief bit and then came back in, and he played most of the second half. So
And
he seems okay.
that's sometimes the silver lining, I guess, in having Caleb Johnson, Jazz Patterson, Caleb Brown miss parts or all of the game. You'd like to get those guys some snaps and get them kind of geared up for next week. But at least, you go into next week knowing you'll have those guys available.
Yeah.
That was a disappointment for me. I know a lot of people around us where we were sitting were wondering why not put Sullivan in the fourth quarter.
Couldn't agree more.
I would like to have seen that for two reasons. One is we've recognized we have some level of competition at quarterback now. And secondly, how would we feel if Kane goes down and we're ahead 33-0 at the time? Now, we substituted a lot of other players at a lot of the other positions, and the one position we didn't until the last 2 minutes, of course, was to put in Sullivan. So I wish that Brennan would have gotten some more meaningful snaps, and didn't happen, but maybe we'll have opportunities up ahead. I hope so.
Yeah, you hope so. But overall, I think they just wanted to get Cade some more reps where he was feeling good and build even more confidence more than anything else. So
I mean, we have to keep in mind too, this is his third straight off season that he's had half or more of his off season taken away with an injury. So those reps are important for him.
Yep. So he got a good amount of snaps. So very good. Very good.
Anything else?
Before the game, if you'd told me we're going to beat them 40-0, I would have said it's going to be a good day for Iowa. And so let's not overlook the fact that, they showed up and they wanted to play well too. And as you know, Tom, Illinois State, their record last year was very deceiving. They were 6-5, but 4 losses were by a total of 8 points.
Well, Don, you know how good Brock Spack is. He's a great coach. Yeah. He's an excellent defensive coach. And
he is their all-time winningest coach. And, of course, he had a lot to do with Purdue's success when he was the DC there. Outstanding coach.
He knows Iowa.
He does. He proved that, especially in the first half.
Yep. Tough game, but on to Iowa State now, guys. So see how that goes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time, Tom. And we will.
I do have one last question. Excuse me.
I
can just ask
Go ahead, Coach.
Do you have any idea of what Brock had to say after the game?
I did not. We were with players and then with Coach Wallace, so we did not get to talk to Brock at all after the game.
Well, the beauty of social media is I'll be able to find out on my phone later.
That's the beauty of social media today, Coach.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, guys, thank you.
Absolutely. We will talk to you after hopefully another Cy-Hawk victory at Kinnick.
Thanks, Tom.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, always good to hear from Tom Kakert. Like I said, a very different press conference for him today, but hopefully a fun one. It's I don't know. I don't think you've probably heard the sideline interviews with Seth Wallace. He did 2 throughout the game, Coach, one at halftime and one at the end. And I thought, as we've seen in the past, just a really well-spoken guy and a really solid representation of Iowa football. I think that is not named Kirk Ferentz. I'd say outside of Kirk Ferentz and Phil Parker, he's taken on the kind of embodiment of what Iowa football is. I honest to goodness, I looked at somebody like that, the way that he spoke and carried himself before and after the game, and thought, that's somebody I'd be comfortable with when Kirk does decide to walk away, with him being the lead man.
A lot of guys, Kyle, have asked me if they were just named as a head coach somewhere, never been a head coach. They've asked me, give me some advice as a former head coach. Give me some advice on how to best navigate the job of being a head coach. And I've always told them one thing in particular: in the position you're in, you need to react to what happens and guard against overreacting to what happens. And you'll see Kirk do that. He'll react, but he won't overreact. And that's what good coaches do, I think. They adjust as they have to, but they don't become a blithering mess on the sideline, because I've always said if you lose your poise, the players are going to read you and they're going to lose their poise. So you got to keep your poise. You got to maintain confidence. Or a simple phrase I used to use is never let them see you sweat. Talking about the other team.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you can give that message to your players, that's good for their conduct too. Never let them see you sweat.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to our next caller here. We got a couple more people in line. I'm going to go ahead one more time here and drop the link for the show into the chat. So if you're interested in calling to talk to less so myself, more so Coach Patterson, the link will be in the chat there, in the live chat, and also in the description on the YouTube video. All right, let's get to the next caller. TCU Hawkeye, welcome back.
Hey, Coach Kyle, how are y'all doing this afternoon?
Hey, good win for the Horned Frogs last night.
Yeah, I had to stay up extremely late to finish that game. Pac-12 after dark. I think I was.
I'll
up till
admit I
1
didn't
a.m.
see it, but I
trying to
did see the
that.
score flash today, and of course I have a cousin, matter of fact, that played for TCU years ago. A guy named Randy Howard, but it was
Okay.
way back in time. I forget what years Randy played. Probably back in the '60s, maybe. Long time ago.
Yeah, well, I graduated from TCU, but I've been a Hawkeye fan since I was as long as I can remember. So my alma mater is TCU, but my heart is with the Hawkeyes. So
You're not a native Iowan, are you?
my mother is. My mother's she's from Keokuk, and my father was just on the other side of the Mississippi in Western Illinois. So I spent a few years in Washington and Indianola. So I've had enough time to recognize the Hawkeyes as where my heart is. So been a fan for going on 40 years now.
Well, you can appreciate this. I used to recruit North Texas for Iowa, and back then the Cowboys were really good. And I used to always explain it this way. If you play for Iowa, you need to understand we are the Dallas Cowboys of Iowa. That's what we are. All the little kids are hoping to someday be good enough to play for Iowa. And
That's
you really
right.
do feel
That's
special
right.
when you take the field at Kinnick Stadium. At least in the home
Absolutely.
team you do. I'm not sure you feel nearly as special if you come out of the visitors tunnel.
No, it's a different feel. I mean, the Cowboys own Texas, and they're America's team, but the Hawkeyes own Iowa. It's a Hawkeye state, so I haven't lived there in 30 years, but I still represent the Hawkeyes strong down here in Houston, Texas.
Well, we appreciate you hanging in there with us.
Absolutely. No, I love to call in and talk to you guys. You guys have such a good feel for the game and such great commentary on the games that we've seen. And, you know, really what I saw today is it's a tale of two halves, right? I mean, the first half was very similar to what we've seen in the past. I think we're all a little frustrated, kind of thinking that, well, not much has changed. But when that second half started, you know, we saw a lot of shots downfield. We saw a lot of big plays, a lot of points scored, some things that we haven't been used to in the last couple of years. So that was exciting to see. You know, a couple comments that I had was the true freshman wide receiver really showed some great poise, making some good catches in traffic. You know, making the tough catches that, you know, I don't think we've seen a guy of that stature as a wide receiver at Iowa since probably Brandon Smith. So it's good to see us have a threat downfield with the height and the speed that he allows us kind of take those shots. And, you know, on that touchdown catch that he made, he kind of picked it off in the air, high point of the ball. You know, that's what you want to see from wide receivers. So I was really impressed by our RVZ, I guess is what we'll call him, Reese Vanderzee.
Pretty amazing to be able to have that good a game as a true freshman.
You know, the biggest came from that type of production from a true freshman, you know, from a season, let alone his first game since Dominic Douglas or however far back you want to see. I think they mentioned it during the telecast of last time we've seen that type of production. So that was impressive. And then, you know, what I saw, I think, and I don't remember the play, but I just remember Cade showed some dynamic, you know, he missed two tackles in the backfield, kept his eyes downfield, made a pass. I don't think we've seen a play like that from my Iowa quarterback. I know Nate Stanley had some incredible moments with the Ohio State defender wrapped around his legs, but that kind of took me back to the C.J. Beathard years of a quarterback running around the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, looking to make a play. And that was exciting to see. That's the type of dynamic quarterback play we're going to have to make, to make a big push come Big Ten season to, have a successful season. So that was exciting to see.
Yeah, the even the Gill touchdown pass as well too. I mean, looking at that replay too, he was not, that was great anticipation by Cade to throw him open. I mean, that Jacob Gill was not streaking down the sideline or the middle of the field wide open. He had the safety on the top side, he had the corner on the near side, and Cade threw him open. I thought that was great anticipation.
Yeah, pretty tight window.
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree. That that's throwing the ball to a spot. Not waiting for the open receiver to be where he needs to be. That's throwing the ball to the spot and letting your playmakers make a play on the ball. And that's the type of things that it's exciting to see. I don't think I've been excited after the first game of the season to see this in a long time. So extremely optimistic about the potential that our offense showed today. I think we all understood the defense was going to come to play no matter what. They had an outstanding game, forcing turnovers, keeping them out of the end zone, keeping them off the scoreboard. Obviously, everyone's been talking about.
Did we lose him, Co?
I think we did. Let's see. Yeah, no, I think we've lost him. Well, thank you, TCU Hawkeye. We will move on because I don't know if we're getting you back, but we appreciate you calling in, and we will talk to you next week. All right. We will get back to our call line, our Iowa Smokehouse call line, in just a moment. But first, before we do that, if you want a better quality snack for game day or any day, check out what they offer at iowasmokehouse.com. Iowa Smokehouse offers a full lineup sure to satisfy you and your family's snacking needs, whether it's thick and tender cuts of beef jerky, flavorful meat sticks, or delicious steak bites, or even ketchup and barbecue sauces. You will never need to look elsewhere. Tasting is believing. Visit iowasmokehouse.com and use code Hawkeyes for 15% off your next order. That's iowasmokehouse.com and use code Hawkeyes for 15% off your next order. Well, we have a few of the familiar faces in the chat here and in the StreamYard lineup. Let's get to Corey. Corey, how are we doing today?
Fantastic, gentlemen. Fantastic. Sitting here watching Fox showing highlights of the game. I've got a couple quick comments, and then I want a couple expert opinions from Coach Don Patterson. But first off, my defensive player of the game is Aaron Graves. But a shout out to Brian Allen for Corey, who's not with us, because I know Corey is in Brian Allen's corner, and I want to make sure that Corey's opinion is represented. Brian Allen turned the corner quicker on his, defender, offender, whatever you want to read, the lineman, that tackle. He turned the corner faster than I've ever seen any defensive end in a long time. That was impressive. Offensively, Reese Vanderzee, what's our confirmed nickname for him? Because his name's going to be mentioned a lot. Is it RVZ? Anyway,
I think for now it is. We'll see what the Twitter atmosphere comes up with.
Shout out to the TCU Hawkeye. I guess I'm the ISU Hawkeye. But I would like to think that Reese Vanderzee is somewhat emblematic of a Marvin McNutt. I mean, just with the hand fighting. And I think, you put him on that little inside slant where coach, throw it to me. He's going to play me outside. I'm going to cut it inside. I'm going to beat him. just 2009 Michigan State game, Marvin McNutt. Anyway, couple of questions for Coach. First off, and I'll just throw both questions out, and then I'll try to be silent here. First off, Cade McNamara and many Iowa quarterbacks and many historic Iowa plays have seen success on the rollout, whether it be the naked bootleg, whether it be the how much better vision, what are the odds? You saw some dangerous deflections from the defensive lineman of Illinois State. My first question is, and I'll listen, and then I'd like to add one more question later. But Coach, what level of risk? What are the pros and cons of rolling your quarterback out and getting him out of the pocket? Does it elevate your vision because you don't have all that traffic in your way? And secondly, obviously there's risk. Cade rolled out right into a sack on one play, but by design, can you kind of mention the risks and rewards of a rollout? Because it seems like to me there's some huge upsides to the rollout specific to Cade McNamara and rolling out.
Especially when quarterback's not that tall. One thing I'll say is that when you get on the edge, first off, when you're running the ball to the left and you're running a naked fake to the right, you need to run it the same way whether you hand the ball off or not. That's where our quarterbacks can still improve. Catch or fake, even when we do give the ball to the running back. But it does give you some easier throwing lanes sometimes, that's for sure. And it gives you a chance, of course, to make your decision on the run. And it doesn't have to mean that it's just a little ball control pass to a tight end that's breaking out. I believe today, I'm pretty sure we hit a deeper receiver a time or two also. Certainly you see other teams do that. They go with a naked concept, but they have a scheme that includes deep receivers too. You have to have time to gather yourself to be able to throw it that far, maybe. But one cautionary note about nakeds, you need to be sure you're only severing one guy at the most, one guy. So if you see what anticipates as pressure off the side, you're going to run naked too. And we are very, very right-handed with naked. I don't think we ran one naked to the left today. So typically we fake left, roll right. Right-handed quarterbacks. That makes some sense. But we just need to be on guard. If there's pressure from a wide front, you better think about getting out of the play because that guy coming from a wide alignment is going to be able to pull you up and maybe even create a sack or create a turnover. So that's the only cautionary note about naked. Be sure you see the alley. The alley needs to be clean. You need to be sure you're not trying to fool any more than the wide rusher that's lined up on the ball. And even then, you might not even fool him. Depending on his alignment, you might have what we call a slam block. You might take that. Maybe the tight end's not even going to get out. Maybe you're going to block with the tight end, run naked. Typically, we release the tight end. That's usually who we throw it to, the play side tight end. Sometimes you might see a guy coming from the other side, but oftentimes it's maybe a slot receiver or a tight end, an inside receiver to the side of the roll. It's been a good play for us. I just would like to think every now and then, just to break tendencies, we might run naked to the left because I guarantee they wouldn't expect it because it's not what we do. It's not what most teams do. But there is an argument for running it that way. And you might make the obvious statement, Corey, well, and part of the problem is you can't throw as well to the left if you're right-handed. That's true, but you simply coach it. We used to always tell our guys, if you're right-handed, we're sprinting left. Just understand you're not going to have the same throwing motion as if you're rolling right. Go ahead and make it a three-quarter motion to be able to get the ball on target. But you can do that with practice. You can run naked to the left even if you are right-handed.
Yeah, I appreciate the perspective, Coach. And then, one comment I'd like to make on kind of flipping a little here, but Mr. Kamari Moulton and his level of effort against, and this is another question. I know that you want to set the tone early in the game with establishing the run. But to me, the hardest time to establish the run is when the opponent is fresh. It astonishes me how many teams, games, coaches try to establish the run when you know that you're against your opponent's freshest and best early in the game. I would think that you'd want to get them on the run, start with the passing game, get that defensive line worn out, then try to establish a run. Because, these guys aren't that much different O-line to D-line at the beginning of the game when they're all fresh. That said, I'd like your perspective is starting off with the run. Even though it's not going to pay dividends, you want to start the exhaustion process early and get it going and get it in
Corey,
place.
you have heard that term, pound the rock. That's the thought process is we're going to wear them down. We have an idea of what their depth is. They're going to be very hesitant to play backup players simply because they're young and inexperienced. So we're going to wear them down and we're going to beat them. There's a calculated risk there. There's always that possibility that they'll somehow hold up well enough to get through the game and pull off a win. And then you might wish you had a little more balance in your offense while you were trying to establish the run. There's a lot to be said for your thought process. I will make this comment. You might remember the first series of downs, we were 3-and-out. I told my wife, I said, and the guy sitting next to us, I said, it would not surprise me at all. I think it was after a turnover. Wouldn't surprise me at all. First play, second series, if we go play action and try to hit something downfield. We did try to do that. We didn't throw it downfield, but we tried. Kate gave the downfield receivers a look, ended up throwing to the back of the flat, incomplete. Kamari threw it a little bit low. Kamari couldn't control it, but at least it was a good sign because I was hoping we would try to hit something big after being 3-and-out, and sure enough, we did. So, there's that old expression, Corey, you can't steal second with your foot on first. There's a lot of truth to that. Don't forget, at some point, you need to try to win the game. Because if you're only preoccupied with trying not to lose it, that's probably not a good plan of attack.
Yeah, and that's what that first half looked like. It was just a whole bunch of trying to get Kate's feet under him and not make too many mistakes while we did that. Thanks for calling in, Corey. I'm gonna have to get to some other people here because we got 4 or 5 people left in the queue here. But
take care, Corey.
Calling in as always.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. All right. Brief update since it's coming next week. Iowa State is at halftime with North Dakota. We're just coming out of halftime here. Iowa State up 14-3 on North Dakota so far. Jalen Knoll had 121 receiving yards in the first half, so he's having himself a day. 197 total yards for Iowa State so far. Talented linebacker for the Cyclones had to get either carted off or helped off. Bacon, I think it was Caleb Bacon, their linebacker, who he had to get helped off the field. So that's the only.
Any idea, Kyle, of how serious it is?
Well, they said he couldn't put any pressure on it all the way to the locker room. So I would assume there's at least something there. Hopefully for his sake, though, it's nothing more than a stinger or something like that. All right. Got a few more callers still in the queue. Let's get to one of our favorites. Alex, how are we doing?
Good, gentlemen. How are you today?
Not too bad. Good to see you on a brand new Hawkeye football season.
Yep. It's always good to start off with a Hawkeye win. So, obviously, I always write down notes. I think one caller obviously came in late, tale of two halves. So, and first off, a question for Don. How concerned are you with this offensive line not being able to get a push in that first half? Granted, they did get that push in the second half, but I think it was just the Iowa, the bigger, more talented, no discredit to Illinois State offensive line, so they were able to wear them down. But going into more FBS play, obviously we got Iowa State coming up, Troy, maybe not a team to really worry about too much, but still an FBS program, and then we go into Big Ten play. How concerned as a coach would you be that the offensive line struggled in that first half?
Well, it'll be easy for the O-line coach to have the attention of his players when he's going through the video of the first half, because clearly we didn't do well enough. My guess is when you really study the tape, you'll find certain technique flaws maybe across the front where one or more linemen or in the excitement of the game, maybe they forgot about technique a little bit, didn't execute their block as well as they should. As a result, didn't create the scene that we're looking for. There was not a whole lot of running room in that first half. That's true. So you'd like to believe our guys will be really good listeners when the coach is given not just criticism, but constructive criticism. Just trying to help them to understand how to play better, how to execute better, how to not lose sight of the fact that technique does matter. It is not all brute force and ignorance. There's some technique involved, and you can't lose sight of that fact. Maybe that happened today to one or more O-linemen. I don't know. Haven't studied the video, of course. But I will guarantee you this, George Barnett knows how to correct their mistakes. And those mistakes will be corrected. That'll give us a chance to make improvement from week 1 to week 2.
Yeah. There's a couple other things. So on Caleb Johnson's long 60-some-odd touchdown run, I noticed something. Again, I jumped in kind of late here. He dropped the ball like right as he entered into the end zone. And they were about ready to kick the extra point, and they kind of held him up, but then they kicked it, obviously no review, and I never saw a replay of it. As a coach, is that going to be on film and say, hey, don't do that? Because obviously we've seen, I think, back in the bowl game where I believe, I can't think of his first name, Loudermilk intercepted a pass, ran it back, but dropped the ball on the 1-yard line. But no one recovered it, so Iowa got the ball back, and I think they ended up scoring a touchdown shortly after that. But it's one of those where you see that, and it's, as a fan who's seen it multiple times, you're thinking, oh, crap, why are you doing that? I know there's no style to it. You kind of look foolish if it gets called back.
Well, you're exactly right. I always explain to our guys, be sure you carry the ball into the end zone. At that point, don't just flip it out on the ground. Find the nearest official, give him the ball, and then look up your teammates, because you need to congratulate them on being instrumental in getting you into the end zone. Are you saying that if they would have appealed it, if they would have jumped on the ball, now when the ball was dropped, an official was not immediately on the ball, right? The ball laid there for a short period of time, I guess. Here's my question. Did an Illinois State guy have an ample opportunity to possess the ball?
I don't think they didn't do a clear enough shot after he scored the touchdown. They panned to him, but they didn't show anyone jumping on the ball. And from my understanding is that if there is no clear recovery, it just goes back to the receiving or to the team that last possessed the ball. Now, if it drops in the end zone and no one recovers it, I'm not sure how that rule is played out, whether they give it to them on the 1-yard line because it's a fumble, but if it's in the end zone, it's now the defending teams, but with a touchback. So usually sometimes when I've seen that, I've seen the offensive team pick up the ball and kind of hold it in the end zone just to make sure, like, oh yeah, no, we have the ball, it's all good, touchdown. Yeah. So, but
did you have the impression that the officials actually waited a short period of time to see if any defender reacted that way?
It was when Iowa was trying the PAT. They held them up for a minute and then they let him kick it. So I was thinking, oh crap, are they looking at to review this? But obviously they didn't. Touchdowns, the touch still stands. But
the announcer didn't wonder out loud if he'd broken the play.
Yeah, maybe. But they obviously didn't review it. And then last negative thing was obviously you had mentioned it just a little bit ago about how sloppy Iowa was specifically with some of the penalties. The fumble was a bad call where Jay Higgins was the one that got tugged on, but yet they called it on him. So it was weird. But, obviously onto the positives, Iowa defense shuts out, a team's shutouts are hard to do. Cade looked really good moving around. I remember that first game last year where he was real gimpy. Even going into Western Michigan, when he ran for a little bit, you could tell he was just not 100%. He looked good.
Do you remember, Alex and Coach, the bootleg that they ran against
Western Michigan? Yeah, he ran out of bounds and he was grabbing his leg.
The one I remember was Penn State down the right sideline, and the CBS announcers were all over it. They said, this dude is like 2/3 or half of his normal speed.
Yeah.
I remember that in the Western Michigan game where he rolled out, and I don't know if it was a design. I think he just rolled out and said, I can run for the first down. And you could tell he had a lot of hitch in the giddy up. And even the announcers were like, ugh. But that was a little more concerning. Another concern, they were up 33-0, and yet we're still rolling out the first team offense. And I understand get him reps, can kind of get him more conditioned to game time. But at the same time, it's like you always worry. I worry about, injuries and everything. Obviously, came out clean. No major injuries that I noticed. I think a lot has been said about Reese Vander Zee. He looks really good. We'll see against a higher quality opponent against Iowa State, who has a really good secondary this year. And it's kind of nice to see that Cooper DeJean's returning punts again.
Huh.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds you of Cooper, didn't it?
Yes, it did. I worry a little bit because he has that. I feel like he has that tenacity of I can make something out of this, even though I have a defender right here in my face, to where, okay, I should probably maybe call a fair catch, an actual fair catch.
There was one ball in particular, he absolutely should have fair caught it.
Yes.
You know what when you're talking about.
Yeah, but nobody questions your courage, but you really only got a split second to protect the ball. And on those plays, of course, the ball may pop out.
Yeah, so it's nice to see that, I think he can be electric in the return game. So obviously LeVar Wood, special teams, still really doing very well. And last thing I'll leave off on, I'll let you guys debate amongst yourself of Seth Wallace's post-game interview. I'm disappointed he didn't pull the Sharon Moore and start crying and say how much he loves Kirk Ferentz. And I don't know, maybe that's not quality of a head coach. Sharon Moore's no head coach.
I said the exact same thing to Corey. I said, you're going to see the difference between Iowa football and Michigan football because one was a puddle on the sidelines and one was a coach. But he was
a little emotional. You could hear it a little bit in his voice. He was a little emotional, but obviously he held it in, which was it was good to see, but I had to make the comment, obviously.
No, absolutely. But anyway, I think his emotion was more about the opportunity he was given to get his first win, whereas Sharon Moore was, oh my gosh, Coach Harbaugh, we love you. It was like, yeah. I understand the emotion about Seth, with his dad and everything, being able to have the opportunity to get his first win as a head coach. The other one was just, oh my goodness, Coach Harbaugh. That was the part.
I was half hoping he would, just as a troll, just half hoping, But anyway, obviously, Don, I always, it's your insight's always appreciated. And, Kyle, it's, you do a great job covering for Corey. So, it's nice to see you guys keep on keeping on. So keep up the great work, guys. We'll see. I may not be able to call in next Saturday. My son's birthday is next Saturday and I can't say anything too much because it's a surprise for him or where we're going. So I'll try to be able to listen to the game secretly. So,
absolutely.
But anyway, great Hawkeye.
We will hopefully see you after Troy, and we can talk about a 3-0 Iowa football team. How about that?
And your secret, Alex, is safe with us. We're not going to give it up.
Us and the other 300 people watching.
Yeah, but anyways, always good talking to you guys, and go Hawks.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call, Alex. All right. Reminder again, the call-in line is in the description, and it's in the chat. It's been in there a couple times. If you'd like to call in and ask a question, we are going to have to kind of speed through these last few callers because I would like to make sure that unlike last season, we don't have any 4-hour post-game shows where Coach Patterson is answering questions about the offense until 3:00 in the morning. How about that Penn State post-game last year?
Oh,
So we'll try to keep that in last year's season and not in this year's season. Anyways, other note as well, if you'd like your chat to be featured on the channel, I've got a lot to kind of manage here with the ad reads and all that stuff. So if you want your chat read or your question answered in the chat, then I would recommend going ahead and dropping a super chat. It's a great way to support the show and also a great way to make sure that your question gets answered. So if you do have a question in the chat and you're not able to call in, drop a super chat and we will get to it at some point here before the end of the show. For example, D. Rolfson says, North Dakota 173 yards in the first half. Iowa wins next week. Don't know how much we're going to be able to read into Iowa State's game here. Let's go ahead and get an update on that. See where they're at. I did see Raiola was having a very good first half for Nebraska, Coach. Nebraska up 30-7 against UTEP at halftime. Obviously, probably not a huge challenge for them this week, but he had 2 touchdowns and I think 200 yards passing in the first half and looked really sharp. So it'll be an interesting storyline to follow as he's the only freshman quarterback in the Big Ten this year. Let's see here. Iowa State still up 14-3. They've got the ball at midfield with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter. All right, let's get to we've got time for a couple more callers here, and then we will talk about Iowa State here as we wrap up and look forward to next week. Got Erica next up. Erica.
Hello. Hi, guys. How's it going?
Great to have you on again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so
Erica,
much.
how are you?
I'm doing well. I was a bit nervous a little bit there at the beginning. I was having some PTSD, to be honest. But then after they came back from halftime, I felt a heck of a lot better. So I'm good now.
Absolutely. There was after Utah State and of course that South Dakota State game, there was probably a lot of people. Were there boos in the crowd in the first half? Did I hear that correctly?
There was a little bit of dissension, yeah. When we had 3 and outs.
It didn't sound like a kind of direct boo, but it sounded like there was a lot of tension in the crowd or a lot of kind of, I don't know, pent up feelings.
Third medium, third and long, where we threw and caught the ball short of the first down, that type of thing. Maybe they were questioning the call more than the team's ability to make a first down.
Yeah. I think they maybe were nervous given that, the past history the last years of the offense, seeing that we didn't come out, that great at first. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I just watched it. But I did have some questions for you guys. I wanted to ask, speaking of that first half, do you guys think that was that they were scared to open the playbook since we're playing Iowa State next weekend? Like, they don't want to show everything, of course, the first game. Do you think that was part of why maybe it was, subpar the first half?
Yeah, I think so. I made the comment during the week. You prepare more offense than what you hope to have to use. The same might be said for defense. So at the end of the game, if you're able to say, well, we only used 60% of the offense that we had available for the game, that's a good thing, of course, because that means you haven't shown very many cards to the next player.
Right, they won't know what to expect, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. It looked like early in the game when we were faking, we were running the ball one side and then faking a reverse to Gill was normally the receiver. It seemed like it was faking the reverse. It looked like to me if we handed it to him earlier, it would have gone for pretty good yardage. We finally did run the reverse, but it was fourth quarter, and I really didn't understand. If you haven't run it yet, why don't you just hang on to it?
Yeah.
And not alert them all over again. Hey, we might give the ball to the wide receiver on the reverse. Mm-hmm. We pitched it to him. He made 5 yards. It wasn't a great game for us anyway. So at that point, I would have said, let's ditch the reverse. Let's put that on the shelf. Let's not use it today. We'll use it next week. Or
Right.
maybe not next week. If they defend the reverse, we won't call the reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Really that simple. But the fact that we didn't do it today, I would imagine that might have given us a better chance to run it against Iowa State.
Yeah, yeah. And I was also surprised during the first half, all the calls that went against us. That's very un-Iowa-like, and that really also got me concerned. Like, that's one thing we really pride ourselves in, despite how horrible our offense was last year and the year before that. We still didn't get a lot of calls against us. But this first half, that was another reason I was super concerned. It was very shocking to see. Especially since
Yeah,
some of
you're
them
right.
also didn't seem merited either. Some of them seemed like the refs had a bad call.
Well, and sometimes a fan might say, I don't know why it's such a big deal. It was only a 5-yard penalty. Well, it really wasn't a 5-yard penalty. A simple example I give you. Imagine you throw an 80-yard touchdown pass,
Mhm.
and you got a slot formation to the side you threw the touchdown. The only problem is the inside receiver who was lined up on the ball was covered up by the outside receiver who was incorrectly also lined up on the ball. The ball goes down the field, touchdown for 80 yards. No, it's a 5-yard penalty because that was an ineligible receiver because he was covered up by the outside receiver. It shows up in the stats as a 5-yard penalty. In truth, it was an 85-yard penalty.
Right.
So,
And plus, those, just like you said, it adds up. And then also, if you get enough penalties, even without, touchdowns being called back, that adds up too really quickly. So I
yeah,
think that's something they've got to work on. I mean, obviously, second half, that was much improved, but they need to continue making sure that doesn't happen again. And then I had a few other notes here too. I wanted to ask, and maybe, you haven't had time to analyze the stats enough yet, but I wanted to know what percentage it was with the calls with run versus pass. Because I know that we were trying to get balanced. That's part of the goal. I'm just
yeah,
curious
we
how.
had pretty good balance. What we ended up with 31 pass attempts. Kyle, is that right?
Yeah, I think it was 21 for 31 and then 40 rush attempts, if I remember.
Yeah.
21 of 31 and 40 carries on the day. And that includes Cade had 1, LaShawn had 5, Kamari had 19, Caleb had 11, and then Max White got 2 and Jacob Gill got 1.
Yeah, a lot of people assume when you talk about balance between run and pass, that doesn't necessarily mean 50-50. Maybe the balance you're looking for is 55-45. Maybe it's 60-40. The point is, we want decent balance. We don't want to be 80-20.
Right. And plus, it probably depends what team we're playing too, because you have to look at how the other team defends you, and then you have to make decisions based on that as well. Not only that, but also the team's abilities. Like, if it's not a good passing team, like the last few years where we haven't had very good wide receivers till now, you can't do as many passes. You have to work on the run game in that case and make that the priority. So there's a lot of factors there. But I was just curious, and it sounds like based on those numbers, we did a pretty good job today splitting it up. So I think that's successful.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, if we had lost the game today and we were 60% pass, we didn't establish the run well enough.
Right. Right.
You'd like to think at the very least you get up to a 50% level on run, and then you get to throw when you want to throw. And of course, if you're 50% or more run, it means you're probably pretty efficient with your running game, which gives you more opportunities for play action pass.
But you also have to think about, like I said, I agree with you, but you also think about the other team. Like what Illinois State was doing is they were crowding Cade. So like they couldn't really get running going, which is why they had to go to the pass. And that's where knowing your opponent comes into it, I guess, and scouting them properly.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. You cannot allow them to gang up on your running game. If you're dealing all the time with a loaded front, by loaded front I just mean the way they're lined up, they're clearly committed to stopping the run.
Right.
They're comfortable with one-on-one receivers outside, guarding one man with one man and no help. Well, clearly, you better be good enough to take advantage of that one-on-one coverage because it's going to be difficult to block them all if you just continue to run the ball in the box.
Mm-hmm, right. And I mean, the downside for Illinois State would be, well, eventually, and this did happen, they get tired because it takes more energy to, defend that way. It feels like, I don't know, maybe not. Let's see, what else did I have? Well, to also say the same as everybody else, Reese Vanderzee, oh my God, he's unbelievable. I'm so excited to keep seeing what he does and how he develops. He's already fantastic.
He just has great size. I mean, I just love his size on top of his speed down the field. I mean, even that ball that Cade threw off the back foot with the two rushers in his face. First of all, I thought there's no way he would try to throw that ball in Big Ten play. But number two, like, those are the types of plays that show that he has trust in his receiver. I mean, that it just does. So those were two, or that throw in particular was like he trusts him to just go get it.
Yeah. And that's a good sign, especially since he's a freshman. I mean, that's why I'm so impressed, honestly. I don't remember the last time we had a good freshman receiver like that.
Yeah, I don't either. Well, I mean, in general too. I mean, I said this earlier. He was the only freshman on the 2 deep. Like, he was the only freshman on first or second string at any position that was listed on the 2 deep. So, he matched the touchdown total he would have in just one game been the leader in wide receiver touchdowns last year. There was not a single wide receiver had more than 2 touchdowns last year. So, it was really refreshing to see.
Right. And then one last question I had, and I'll let you go because I know a lot of people are waiting. Coach, I wanted to ask, I know that you have some key stats you look at to kind of predict who's going to win the game and all that. And I know you don't want to reveal all those, and that's fine. But I'm just wondering how that went this game. Like, how many of those did we win? I mean, to me, it looks like the first half I would have said we lost all of it. But the second half, it's like we came out flying colors, on fire. So I'm just curious how that went in your opinion.
Well, the analytics I'm always working on are analytics only involving conference opponents. But if you want to apply that to a non-conference game, the things you're looking for that give you the highest chance for winning, average starting field position. I'm pretty sure we won that today. Explosive plays, as done explosive plays. I'm pretty sure we won that too. We identified one explosive play for them. We didn't have that many, maybe. We had a lot of good gainers, 10-yard gainers.
Yeah.
But of course, the 64-yard touchdown is good, and we had other explosive plays that would give us an edge. They had one that was 37 yards. That's what we call super explosive because it's 30 yards or more. But they didn't have anything else even up to 20.
Right.
So we gave up one big play, if you want to think of it that way. I'm sure we had more than one today. I haven't looked at the stats to know, but we had an edge on explosive plays.
Time of possession, we won that, no doubt.
Other parameters that should be important. Well, here's a good example. We were +3 on turnovers. If you were +3 on turnovers in the Big Ten last fall, you win the game 100% of the time. +3 is a good number. Normally, that'll get you a win. If of course, you beat them head-to-head on all kinds of other stats, it'll help you to have a one-sided win as we had today.
Yep. Well, that was all I had. I really enjoyed today. Like I said, the first half was very scary for me and very PTSD for me. But I'm so glad whatever they said during the halftime there, that worked. Whatever was said back there, they need to keep saying it. And here's to a excellent season, hopefully, guys. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you, Erica.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Have a good day. Bye.
Yep. All right. Couple of things here, Don. I was kind of writing a couple notes as Erica was talking there. I saw a comment, and I'm going to put it on the screen here because it's not necessarily to do with the game today, but kind of an interesting point. So Ralph Wolf says Kirk does not get credit for a win from the NCAA today. Is that I assume that's true. Iowa can give him a win in their record books. Is that to your knowledge? Is that correct?
I did read something the other day. The question came up, of course, about Harbaugh at Michigan. Is Sherrod Moore 4-0 as a head coach to start the season? As I understand it, I think he's right. The school can do with it as they please. So I don't know what Iowa will do. I don't know if today's win goes down as one for Kirk or one for Seth. I don't think either one of them are concerned about who gets the credit for the win.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's something that they're going to do too much hand-wringing about. But and another interesting thought about that too is Kirk is right on the line. I know probably a lot of people don't follow this, but college football coaches to get into the Hall of Fame or generally speaking to be considered for the Hall of Fame, there's a generic rule of a 60% career win percentage, right? And Kirk is at 62% at Iowa, but if you include the rest of his coaching tenure, that would bring him to 59.4% for a career. He would have to go, I think, 8-4 or 9-3 this year to get above that 60% threshold this season, assuming it would be his last year. Obviously, if he coaches a few more years, he'll have an opportunity to get above that 60% number. But to me, that's an interesting little thing of a win that was kind of taken away from him that gets him closer to that 60% mark, because I think we all acknowledge that he deserves to get into the College Football Coaching Hall of Fame. So
yes, that's one more reason to have a great season.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you can still get 8 or 9 more wins this year. They've still got, they've still got 11 more chances pending postseason success to get more wins. So I'm going to go ahead and we got a couple more things to get to here. We'll talk Iowa State for next week. And then we will preview our show tomorrow night and let everybody go. Iowa Postgame with Coach Don Patterson is proudly presented by Brad Van Meter at State Farm in Des Moines. Call Brad for a free quote on auto, life, renters, and even homeowners insurance at 515-256-6480 or visit www.bradvanmeter.com. That's 515-256-6480. Again, that's Brad Van Meter at State Farm in Des Moines. We much appreciate Brad's continued support. All right, Coach. Let's talk briefly here before we let everybody go about next week. Your knowledge as to this great, very competitive and great rivalry between Iowa and Iowa State. What are some keys that you'll be watching leading up to the week and during next week's game?
Well, I do recall 2 years ago, Iowa State found a way to win at Kinnick. I think it's going to be one of our most difficult games of the entire season, simply because Iowa State had success here 2 years ago. Playing at Kinnick is not such a big deal to them because so many of the players that are out there playing for them were here 2 years ago and found a way to beat us then. So it'll be a difficult game. I'm sure our guys are going to respect Iowa State the way they should. Respect them as a very difficult opponent. We're going to have to play better next Saturday than what we played today to beat them. That should be the mindset that the players have. I'm sure the coaches will get that point across. Iowa State's not likely to beat themselves. They play good, sound defense. They don't make many mistakes on offense. They ended up playing with a young quarterback last year that actually played pretty well considering he was young. Now he's actually still young and got experience. So it's not going to be easy to get him discombobulated. We're going to try, but not sure we can do it, but we got to try. So we should anticipate a 60-minute game. I would be shocked if it's not a one-score game. Even though we've had their number in recent years in general, almost all of them have been one-score games. So it's usually a hard fight to the finish. And proud to say, in Kirk's years, he's beaten them more often than not. I'm also proud to mention we had a string against them back when Coach Fry was here. We actually won 15 in a row. That'll probably never happen again because I don't think there'll ever be that kind of disparity between Iowa and Iowa State going forward. Matt Campbell's an outstanding coach. John Haycock, I know about John Haycock. He used to be the head coach at Youngstown. They're lucky to have both those men in charge of the program. So it'll be a challenge to move the ball against Haycock's defense, and I'm sure their offense will present problems for us. So we better be ready for 60 minutes of intense football. That's what it'll take.
Yeah, here's I'm kind of loosely monitoring this Iowa State North Dakota game, and I just scrolled across something I can barely believe my eyes. So first of all, North Dakota has outgained Iowa State 244 total yards to 218 total yards, and has 16 first downs to Iowa State's 10. Time of possession currently, North Dakota has 31 minutes of possession in this football game, and Iowa State has not hit the 10-minute mark yet. So North Dakota State has kept the ball for 31 minutes to Iowa State's 9 minutes and 41 seconds. Iowa State still up 14-3. They have the ball at their own 16-yard line. And they've also, the other, obviously, part that would go with that is North Dakota has run 56 offensive plays to Iowa State's 25 so far in the game. And we are almost entering the fourth quarter. That is somewhat shocking.
Iowa State must have an edge on explosive plays, I would think.
Yes, they do. They have they had a 21-yard touchdown pass, and then another big completion. I think they're maybe 3-0 in explosives. Let me go back and see here. Yeah, I've got three. I got three explosives, and Jalen Knoll has both of them. That'll be interesting. I mean, we've seen with Xavier Hutchinson and some of the other weapons that Iowa State's had in the past. This is, they have good playmakers on the outside, but obviously one guy stands out. What are your thoughts as far as defending him? Obviously, we saw him last year against Iowa. What did you see last year in keeping him somewhat in check that could translate to this game next week?
Well, I know this. There have been times in the past when, if we were just going to play our corners left and right, a play caller from the other team would make an effort to line up their best receiver versus our weaker corner. You may see some of that. They tried to go after TJ Holiday, but didn't have much success doing it. They may try to do it. The thought process among most people is that the other corner is better. Stay away from Jabari and then throw on TJ or throw on TJ's replacement. I think that was part of the game plan today for Illinois State, but they didn't have much success doing it. So we better be prepared to have a defense just to control Knoll. If he's that dominant a player, we better consider maybe double covering him or using some kind of bracket coverage on him, something special to take away that one receiver. Now, I don't know if he'll finish the game as the obvious go-to receiver, but it sounds like he might.
Yeah, and he has 124 of their yards today. They only have, they only have 265 total yards. So there must have been a big play just a second ago. So they only have 265 total yards. He has over half of their total yards, including. He also returns their kicks or their punts right now. So that's another interesting way to obviously, as we saw with Cooper DeJean, get the ball in the hands of a playmaker. So that'll be interesting to follow.
You've heard me mention sometimes make them beat you left-handed. In other words, the way they prefer to play is to target Knoll 12 times in every game that they play. That's fine if they want to do that. We gotta take away what they prefer to do. We gotta make them play some other way. And sometimes you have to think outside the box a little bit to be able to adjust your defense to be able to control one particular player. And obviously, if you do that, then you're one-on-one on coverage over here on the other side because you're so preoccupied with defending one side of the formation. If the matchup is not good for them, that's still a good thing to do, is take away their strength and make them do something other than what they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a quick look here at RTI Threads one more time. New apparel on the website with Jacob Gill, Aaron Graves, Zach Lutmer, and Carson Shire, and a new season with new items in the store debuting next week at rtithreads.com. Let's go ahead and pull that up. This is the RTI Threads website. Got products from shirts and polos to sweatshirts, hats, pullovers, bags, banners and signs, and decals. Shirts and stuff from all those athletes I listed, and a lot of stuff continuing to be added to that store. Cooper DeJean's apparel line has also not been taken down yet. So if you did not get a chance to purchase Cooper DeJean's apparel and would like to do so, RTI Threads is the place to get it. All right. Well, if we don't have any more callers that are interested in getting in the queue, I'll give everybody a couple more minutes here. But if we don't have anybody pop into the StreamYard here, the link is in the bio in the description of the video, and it was in the chat earlier. If you want to call in, go ahead and call in these last couple minutes before we head out today. Iowa defeating Illinois State 40-0 today on opening week here at Kinnick. RTI Threads player of the game, wide receiver, freshman Reese Vanderzee with 5 catches, 66 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tale of two halves, 6-0 at halftime, 40-0 at the end of the game. They'll be hoping for a lot more of the 40-0. Last little thing I wanted to say, Coach, too. We haven't talked about it much because it's just kind of ho-hum and just a part of what we do here. But I really, really like this tight end room. I really, really, really like this tight end room. We saw Ortworth make a very athletic catch, and he's kind of an afterthought to Ostrenga and Lachey in particular. I was really happy to see him back. He's one of my favorite offensive playmakers I've seen in a long time in Iowa.
Well, as you know, we've earned the tag of tight end university, and I know for a fact the guys that are in the program now take great pride in representing Iowa at the tight end position. It's something we've been good at for over 40 years, and they certainly don't want to let that tradition down in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a treat to watch them the rest of the year. Hopefully, wish Luke Lachey all the best with his continued recovery from that injury, because I know that the images from that were not very pleasant. So we hope to see him in an Iowa jersey and not on the sidelines during the year. All right. Coach Patterson and Corey will be back tomorrow. Corey, like I said earlier, not able to make it today, so the substitute had to come through and kind of hold the fort down. But he will be back tomorrow evening with Coach, answering calls, questions, chats, all that good stuff. I believe 7:30 tomorrow evening. So make sure if you haven't watched the entirety of today or want to see Corey tomorrow, make sure you tune in for that. Make sure we like the video, subscribe.
So let me mention this. Maybe
Yep.
Now, I think I talked to Corey maybe since you heard 7:30. The last I understood from Corey, I was okay to go at 7 o'clock, and I think he'll post it, I'm sure, if it's not posted already. But I think the listeners should plan on 7 o'clock. And they might wonder what's going to be different tomorrow than today. I'm going to have a chance to go back and watch the TV copy of the game. And, of course, I'll have a lot of comments that I'll write down based on being able to back it up and look at the same play over and over again. So that'll be one thing different, is I'll have a more thorough critique of what happened during the course of the game. And then beyond that, I'll take a look at some of the analytics too. And, of course, maybe a slight preview, of course, on Iowa State. There is one other game I'm taping today, and that would be the one in Ames. I'm going to look at both those games. I'll have them both looked at by tomorrow night.
Absolutely. You'll get the Tim Lester view from the television or press box after the game today. It was great to see they cut to him during the broadcast, talked about him a little bit, but man, it was refreshing to see an offensive coordinator up in the press box calling plays. I don't know. That's been one of our pet peeves around here. So that was great to see.
Yeah, you can just, the sideline's really chaotic. Not to mention, of course, with such a good elevated seat, you can see the entire field a lot better from upstairs than you can from sideline.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. We will wrap things up here for today. Corey and Coach Patterson will be back with you at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. 7 p.m. tomorrow night per Coach Patterson. Whole new perspective after Coach goes back and watches the game. So there'll be lots of new analysis, and we'll get to hear Corey's thoughts on Iowa's 40-0 win against Illinois State. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow night.